Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good weekend. I'll be touching on a few subjects today, and there's a lot to cover, and it's been kind of a chaotic week. Um, so, before I get to that, I was just going to say I'll be hitting a lot of stuff on the surface level today, but I'm actually going to be starting a blog where I'll be writing more in depth about particular topics. As you know, I like to harp on certain things, so I may keep coming back to things, but this is going to provide a platform for me to actually maybe get a little more in the weeds, and also means you can read some of my stuff without having to look at my face for radio every day. So, first of all, I just wanted to wrap up on the Kavanaugh situation. He was confirmed. Susan Collins gave one of the most disgusting speeches you'll ever hear, lecturing people on dark money and lecturing people on, essentially saying that people are bribing and like whining about donations, which is pretty priceless coming from Republican, really even most Democrats, but particularly a Republican, to have the nerve to say that, given if you go look in her finances, you'll find all kinds of rich donors. So she can kindly shut the fuck up about that. I have no time to hear about that kind of shit from Republicans. Given what they do, it's okay that Sheldon Adelson gives you money. It's okay that oil companies give you money, that banks give you money. But if people give money, individuals just give a few bucks, that's apparently not allowed. Fuck off. Fuck you. And that's another fucking thing is I keep hearing about George Soros. All right, look, I don't want him giving a lot of money either. I don't want Tom Steyer giving a lot of money. But you always want to talk about Soros and protesters. I've been out, I've protested before. I didn't get any money at all. Right? I wish. That'd be nice. But no, you don't get money. And they're whining about Soros and this and that. Look at their own donors. It's massive hypocrisy in every way possible. And at least those protesters are out doing something good. They're getting money to pollute the air. They're getting money to kill your children. So, it's just that. Another thing I wanted to just quickly touch on that is just, she basically, Kavanaugh was passed on this idea of Dr. Ford, the victim in the case, did not recognize, they believed her, but they thought she mistaken identity, and it wasn't Kavanaugh, which is a pretty baffling load of horseshit. They just don't want to say they don't believe the victim, because the true secret here is, the true open secret, I should say, is they don't give a flying fuck about sexual assault. They don't care about it. But they don't want to sound like they're saying it. So they say, oh, we think something happened to her, but it was just like this. It was just someone else, we think. This is psychotic. This is absolutely insane. So you'll be hearing a lot to it. But I want to go in a little deeper into this whole idea of we had to listen to Susan Collins's bullshit for how long. Oh, she's undecided. Honestly, she was like, I'm making my decision at 3 p.m. today. I'm a big sports fan. And I put on Twitter this, actually. When the Supreme Court nomination process has become like college football recruiting or college football national letter of intent day, where senators are making their decisions like this, or how like LeBron changed the decision, this was all grandstanding. This was disgusting. And this is not a proper system of governance that it's come to this point. All right. And moreover, Susan Collins, Joe Manchin, this whole notion of moderate. And I'm going to say Joe Manchin, even though he's listed as a Democrat, he's a Republican. All right. No ifs, ands, or buts. All right. He may have a D next to his name, but he's a Republican, as far as I'm concerned. No one should vote for him. And if he loses, I don't give a flying fuck. All right, there are such things as moderates. I understand that. You got to be a little bit pragmatic in this system. Unfortunately, I understand that. You got to draw a line. Okay. So, but the myth of the moderate. Look at the numbers. Someone like Murkowski, who actually voted against, votes with Trump, is considered a moderate, and they're calling for her to be primaried again, which they've done before. She votes with Trump 80% of the time. She votes with Republicans. She is a conservative, but the Republicans have become so far right that she's considered a moderate by their standards. Susan Collins votes, I would imagine, 60-70% at least with Trump. By contrast, these are the moderates, the Republican Party. You know, there was a time there actually were liberal Republicans. They don't exist anymore. And not saying they're my cup of tea either, but I'm just saying Mike Bloomberg would be a Republican. People like this would be Republicans. But now, Democratic moderates, by contrast, people like Heidkamp and Donnelly, and Doug Jones, who, to their credit, actually voted against Kavanaugh. So credit to them. Shouldn't be a hard thing, but it actually is. Or even Manchin. Manchin votes 61, I believe, percent of the time with Trump. So look at the imbalance, okay? You got people like Flake and Murkowski who vote, 3/4 of the time with their party. Then they're considered moderates on one side. On the other side, you have people who vote against their party almost 2/3 of the time, and they're considered moderates. There's an imbalance, and part of it lies with the Democratic leadership. Spineless cowards like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Tom Perez and these people they're not leaders. They're cowards. That's the nicest way to put it. They are cowards, and they can't keep their caucus in order. So this is the thing. When you have weak leadership, when you have weaklings, this is what's going to happen. And frankly, it's not all the personalities either. When you're talking about two parties that are part of a late stage oligarchic capitalist system, you're going to have the truest of the true believers, and then you're going to have kind of the Republican light, which are the Democrats. So of course they're going to be, it's part of the ideology that they're going to be like conceding and very weak. So it's just out of line. But the least they could do is actually be. I'll get into my feelings, but politically speaking, the least they could do is at least, grow a spine and actually stand up for something. Actually have at least a somewhat progressive agenda and be willing to hold their members to it. But I don't think it's going to happen. But that's one thing. That imbalance has to change. They could learn a thing or two from the Republicans. But anyways, I don't want to harp on that too much. Where do we go from here? That's the question. I think we got to have a multifaceted strategy. I've seen a lot of stupid shit from people on the center and people on the left, both opponents of Trump. But people on the center saying, oh, don't yell at senators, don't give them a hard time, and don't worry about organizing. That's not important. Only vote. That's asinine. That's not really a strategy. So, and on the flip side, you have some people saying, oh, don't vote. It's a waste of time. Or vote for the Republicans. That was more of a trollish thing. By someone that's not really on the left. But the Jimmy Dores of the world, the people who tend to be like, oh, just vote third party, don't vote, or don't vote. It's not realistic. Is the Green Party going to take over Congress or even field anybody for 2018? It's a little late for that. So in the short term, outside of the people like Manchin, who you should not vote for under any circumstance, that he would endorse a racist, misogynist, sexual abusing, little privileged, rich white boy, says enough you need to know about him. He's done. He's out. But you got to vote largely for Democrats. There are cases where you can vote third party if there is a legitimate candidate. Those will be primarily local races. Go for it. Absolutely. But right now, in the short term, you got to crush the GOP, or at least take away their unified stranglehold on the government, because it's simply something of harm reduction. A lot of people are suffering, and they're going to suffer a lot more if through 2018 they're able to maintain full and complete power. So we got to have some mitigation. That's there. In the medium term, we got to keep working on it. I would love to see a general strike actually tomorrow, but just the society is not conditioned for that anymore. So it's going to take some time, but build up the unions, build up movements, organize, get out there in the streets. That's what we got to work on. And leading up to 2020, now, I'd like to think we'll find a good candidate in 2020, or a decent candidate, even someone who can beat Trump. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Hopefully, we keep our eyes open. But at least on the movement side, we keep going. It's two-pronged. You gotta try and mitigate the pain in the system we have now, but you gotta work to change that system as well on the movement side. It's not an either-or thing. You gotta do both. And in the long term, we got to just know that while we're doing this, if we win elections, or if the Democrats win elections, this is not the solution to our problem. It's not the long-term solution. It's a temporary solution. It's something to mitigate some of the pain, all right, that vulnerable people, that working people are going to feel. We absolutely need to mitigate that pain. But that's not the long-term solution. So never get complacent. Never think, okay, Democrats won, that's it. That's what happened in 2008, and I think about Obama, and what happened. We got complacent. We thought, oh, Obama won, everything's going to change, everything's going to get better. And we have the demographic shift that the Republicans aren't going to be able to come back. They're going to have to come towards us, not the other way around. Well, it didn't happen. So there's a lesson in that. You got to keep fighting on both ends, electorally, but also movement-wise. And if the Democrats win, we got to be on their asses too. All right? Got to keep them to account as best we can. Until, the system, until the conditions change to the point that, the change can happen in a way that hurts as few people as possible. My problem with completely shunning the electoral system is that's the only way we're going to help some people. If you have shun the system and continue to have full Republican control, in the short term, a lot of people are going to suffer. And in my opinion, it's a very privileged take to not look at that suffering. Maybe you personally aren't going to suffer, but a lot of people are. So we got to just be honest about that. And I don't think it's very attractive to people if you're saying only we do it this way. And by the way, you got to suffer for this time. Because we don't know how long it's going to take. It's not an easy thing that we're talking about. Changing a very, very recalcitrant system where the people at the top are looking at making money and gaining power. So you're going against a large, very strong force. Okay, so we got to, in the meantime, we got to fight towards that, but also realize this. Electoral politics is a temporary solution right now in the form we have it, because it's not really a democracy at this point. I mean, look at the numbers. Is it a true democracy? No, it's not. So we need to push for people to rise up. We need to push for that. And demand an end to this immoral system of governance. Okay? And this will become more inevitable, I believe. This is why I've said, if the capitalist class, the ruling classes are smart, they would go to Bernie Sanders and say, whatever you want to do, let's do it. Just like in history, FDR, he mitigated a lot of things, and things stabilized. Now, they could do that, and then maybe not all his policies will work. There will be problems, and they would take over again. They would lengthen the current system's lifespan. I don't think that's going to happen, because They want to keep going. They want to keep going and get more money and more power, and eventually that won't be sustainable. So we got to keep working on that. And this is really what I call my ultimatum to the ruling classes. Now, who the fuck am I to give an ultimatum to people with a lot more power than me? It's true. I'm just telling these guys. I'm not your friend. I'm not trying to help you. But it's just a fact. If I were you guys, I would start implementing radical policies to help the working class within your system. Because it might placate people. You don't do that, you may come to regret it. Maybe not you, but your spoiled children will come to regret it. It's not a threat, it's just an ultimatum. So, because you got to remember, when push comes to shove, there's a lot more people, I don't even want to say like me. Even I consider myself privileged, though I don't have a lot of money or anything. But there's a lot more working people than your bougie asses. Right? There's a lot more people than you. And that's always going to be the case. So you keep kicking people, they will come back and they will break down the doors of your mansion and fuck you up. Not saying I want that, just saying that's a fact. So, your decision. On other notes, just a couple other things quickly wanted to touch on, foreign policy wise. We have the situation with this Saudi, not even dissident journalist, just really supporter of the Saudi regime, the monarchy, but mild critic of some of the policies of Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, goes into the the Saudi consulate in Turkey, disappears. And now they suspect he may have been murdered by the Saudis. Mild critic. Now, this person was a resident, I believe, of the U.S., and wrote for the Washington Post. So we got this motherfucker, Mohammed bin Salman. Now, before I go any further, we don't really know what happened yet. That's a suspicion, but it's too early to say. But the bottom line, the fact that he went in there and disappeared is bad enough as it is. That's a sign of a regime that's absolutely emboldened beyond belief, because Donald Trump has given him the green light to do whatever the fuck he wants. Because we don't care about the dirty little secret. We don't care about human rights. We don't care. We just care about, extracting all the resources we can from the world. We are a parasitic system. We have a parasitic foreign policy, so to speak. And we're certainly not the only one. There are a lot of bad actors in the world. But as an American right now, my focus is on America. It's not to say Bashar al-Assad, Kim Jong-un, the Iranian government, etc., all of them I have very bad issues with. But it's interesting how our inconsistency is there. And this is not only a Trump thing. Trump is really taking it to the extreme, and that's bad. But this is also something that's been there in foreign policy, bipartisan establishment consensus for decades. This is the think tank culture. We're not good with foreign policy. And it's caused a lot of really, really bad things in this world. And we're seeing another example of that breaking tonight with the Brazilian elections, where Jair Bolsonaro, pardon me, my Portuguese is not particularly good, a fascist, right-wing fascist candidate for president, is in the lead and will come up just short of a runoff of directly winning outright. They're going to have to go to a runoff. But I would encourage you to look at a lot of people like Glenn Greenwald, Michael Brooks, and the like, who talk and know a lot about this issue. What's happened down there, where you have this guy makes Trump look moderate. By the way, he supports the old military coup. He's viciously anti. Well, he's a racist. He's a misogynist. This guy is, a fascist. There's not even a debate about that. Now, but what has happened is essentially he'll be going up against Haddad. I forget his first name, but he is they say leftist, but he's really center left, kind of like the Democratic Party here, maybe on the left side of that. But he's not like some sort of radical. But the powers that be, the financial industry, the upper middle class, have lined up behind the fascist over this mildly left-wing candidate, because that's what it comes down to. If you're choosing between fascism, which is an extreme form of capitalism, it's not the same thing. It's a political system, but somebody who's going to, give the corporations, give them money, versus a guy who's going to do some good things for the workers. They're always going to choose them regardless of the bigotry, regardless of the violence. And we've seen this time and time again in Latin America. We've seen it in the Middle East. Just what we do. So I'll definitely be touching in on that too. I've always had an interest in foreign policy, so I don't want to shy away from that, which sometimes I think a lot of us tend to do. So just a closing, kind of a closing segment. As I said, I'm a big sports fan, and I was listening to the radio today, and started talking about college football. I went to Penn State for my undergrad, so I've heard this debate before. I've seen it and I've heard it many times. But Nick Saban, the coach of Alabama, came out and was ranting about how the students aren't showing up to games and supporting the team when they were playing a very small kind of crap team that everybody knew they were going to beat by 50 points. So they're scheduling easy teams. And along that line, he was whining about, they're not coming in and supporting the team. What have they earned? They've done nothing. And then he got support from everyone's favorite talentless quarterback, Tim Tebow. Guy the guy worked hard and was a very good college quarterback. And I don't have any particular beef with the guy. I know he's very, very Christian, but I don't really care about that. He seems like a decent enough guy, and I don't want to, criticize him. But here's a guy who's had everything handed to him, many things, not everything, handed to him on a silver spoon. The guy that gets to be a first-round QB, even though everyone knew he wasn't a QB. The guy who gets to get a baseball contract, even and play in the minor leagues, even though everyone knows he's not good enough. He comes on TV and backs Saban in this weird tirade, and he goes off and basically saying, students are so entitled, they're spending mommy and daddy's money, and they're not going in. You haven't done anything. Now, that is a disgusting statement to come from a guy who's had a lot of opportunity and things handed to himself. How the fuck do you know what the students are going to? Okay, yeah, some of them probably their parents paid for. I was lucky. I paid some out of pocket, but I also got help. So I'm not saying this is not about me, but I can't tell you how many students I saw who had to struggle, who couldn't even afford school anymore. They had to drop out and go somewhere cheaper because they couldn't afford the tuitions. How many people I see where I'm at now? These guys can barely afford food. Okay? Doesn't matter what university. You're at Penn State, you could be anywhere else. All right? At Alabama, I'm sure it happens too. And you want to talk about them being entitled and using mommy and daddy's money? I say fuck Tim Tebow. And I say fuck Nick Saban. All right? That's garbage. All right? You want to get them the seats. Play better teams. Shut the fuck up with that. I have had to hear this shit for how many years? I remember even as a, working in the student union there, and we had occasionally some older people come and say, "Oh, you guys are so entitled. Mommy and daddy bought you everything. That's why you're not good at your jobs." Fuck you. All right? that stuff was very offensive to people. Again, I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. I didn't have much debt. But there were people who, again, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in debt. And you want to talk about them being entitled? Get out of here. That crap. And it's really, and I say this not only on the sporting angle, but it's indicative of where I see a sickness really in our society. All right? Always wanting to trash people who are at the bottom rung and saying, oh, they want handouts, they're entitled. No. It's because sometimes it's because you have an education system that's designed to bankrupt you. It's because you have a system in general that's meant to funnel all the money to the top and not give anything to the bottom. So this is a very small, minor thing, but it's very indicative of a bigger issue. And I don't care for any type of that kind of bullshit. And I just wanted to speak out on it and give my feelings on it. So anyways, hope everyone has a good rest of the night. Once I have a link and everything for the blog, I will put it up. But I don't know how regularly I'll be doing it, but just another resource, another place to look. So until then, have everybody a great night, and see you next time.